Safety meeting for March 2022. Good to see each and every one of you here this evening. We have several things to discuss as well as a few budgets to look at this evening. First, I'd like to have the approval of our minutes from our last meeting. Our Vice Chairman's not here. I'd like for somebody to make that motion if we could. Have a motion made, Commissioner Phillips, second by Commissioner P. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Madam Secretary, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Phillips. Here. Commissioner P.
Here.
Commissioner Sherino.
Here.
Commissioner Virgil Gammon. Commissioner Michael Rather.
Here.
Commissioner Gurley. Chairman Reed.
Present.
We have a quorum.
We do have a quorum. And we'll move right on into item 2, which is salary and benefits schedule update. Sonia Stevenson. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone. So I reached out to Steve Thompson, who is with Burris Thompson and Associates. Originally, we had scheduled for him to be here April 7th because he said he couldn't come in March, and I just confirmed with him that he could not come today, and he didn't have the final pieces of the survey. He was out of town in another county, so he will be at the April 7th Budget Committee meeting presenting to everyone there. So if, you know, the Public Safety Committee and anybody who's listening that wants information about it, if they could be at that meeting, he will be present to go over his findings with the market and then also the entities that we ask him to survey. Questions?
Questions on anything? And
Isn't that the date, April 7th, is the budget meeting?
I think that's right. Have you heard anything of what the other municipalities here are specifically doing? I know the mayor has mentioned some of them have given like a 7% or somewhere in that neighborhood.
So, yes, sir, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought that I had already brought it to this, but I guess I hadn't. There are several entities. There were, what, about 10 different entities, was it? About 10 of the group that we asked them to survey after the city of Murfreesboro was doing a pay increase, and of course that was in the newspaper, and then the town of Smyrna did an increase, and that was in the newspaper. After those came out, the state of Tennessee did one early on with our detention, their detention officers. So I went down the list of the entities that we were surveying, and I contacted each of them to say, you know, what are y'all doing any increases like now before the budget time? And some of them had, like Montgomery County had done an increase. Oh my gosh, I can't remember all of them off the top of my head, but there were, Williamson County I think had done one, Franklin had done something. And so I took all of that and information and I emailed that to Steve Thompson, who's doing our survey, and I said, you know, if you've reached out to these entities and you've gotten their information, that was old, and I want to make sure that we have the most up-to-date information for our survey, because I don't want you to ask for stuff that was from last year and now they've done a midterm increase and it's not going to be part of the survey. He did reach out to them and he has included that in his survey results, he said.
Has the state already given their increase?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor, you got anything to add to that? So I'm just curious as to how many of these have already been able to give.
I think I shared the list that Sonia had provided to me when I made that recommendation at the last budget meeting. If you recall, Murfreesboro gave 7 with the intent to give 4. July 1. Smyrna gave 8 with the intention to give 3. Montgomery County, Williamson County went with 10. Montgomery County went with 22. And Hendersonville went to 5 steps, I believe.
It was I can't remember how many steps, instead of
went-
just doing a certain.
Went to 5 steps,
I think
and then, of
that's-
course, what the state's done with the detention and the correction department. So that's kind of in that middle is where I came and made that recommendation of 15%. And we should have all those numbers ready for you at your budget committee next Thursday week.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? No? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. All right, move into item 3. We'll ask Juvenile Detention, Ms. Duke, to come forward at this time. Just to let you know, we have gone through the agenda tonight. We have several people that are prepared for budget tonight, but everybody's budget did not get into the SharePoint for all the commissioners to see these prior to tonight. And I thought it was only fair for the commissioners to see these before they got here tonight, rather than just spring this on you all at once. So what we're going to do tonight, those that were already on SharePoint, that you had the opportunity to see, we're going to do those tonight. Those that did not make it in at that time, we'll do those next month and take care of those. Those you'll be seeing tonight will be the ambulance report and budget, PAWS report and budget, recovery court and budget, probation report and budget, and correctional work center report and budget. And then what I did not mention, we'll do those next month. So they'll include fire and rescue, public safety, sheriff's office, and go from there. The sheriff's office is always a fairly large one, and fire is always a fairly large one. So we need to take more time with those and give you some time to go over those and go through them, if that will meet everybody's satisfaction. If not, as I went through what I saw today from some of these and what we had, we could be a long night trying to do all of them. So I thought it'd be fair for each and every one of you to see these prior to you coming. We'll move now into juvenile detention report. This includes some MOU, two MOUs, I think, from the Board of Education, and then a short pages, I believe. Your report first.
The two attachments that I sent were budget related, so I'll have my normal budget report and then the two MOUs, and then that'll be all for me tonight.
Okay.
Excuse me. Before you have month of February, you can see at the bottom of our yearly report that we're still waiting on a relatively small check from Marshall County. That's not one that we're worried about getting. It should come in the next couple of days. You have the usual rap sheet of the charges that were detained, those that came in and were released, all of these with the agencies that had the activity. Also, our STD report this month we had 13 kids tested, and they had a little more than 23% positivity rate. You'll recall that we do test for chlamydia and gonorrhea. Any of those that test positive, the health department, as part of our agreement with them, comes in for free and treats those young people and gives them an idea about how they can prevent that in the future. Also included in this report is going to be the programming for the month of February, which includes all of the classes that are being taught by our education department, as well as some of the life skills classes that our pastor, our facility chaplain, is involved with. And, excuse me, that is the gist of the report, but if you have any questions about that report, I will happily answer them.
Any questions on the report? Ms. Lynn, I have a question I want to ask you. In the Rutherford County bookend, the numbers you show there from July through February, July showed 12, August 9, September 16, October 2, November 2, December 2, January 4, February 4. I went back and looked some on that from previous times that we had these. Noticed last year about these same numbers. I sort of related it maybe to COVID or what we may have had. But then I went on over into say July 2018, 2019. We seem to have the same numbers. Are we to expect this will be a county numbers?
We have historically had ebb and flow with our population. I've always been asked if there's specific reasoning behind that. You know, we do summertime usually. It falls off a little bit because the young people don't have that contact with the school system and the school SROs. The majority of the county population, in my estimation, really the numbers kicked in, or I should say reduced, when COVID started. The contact between law enforcement and the young people just wasn't there, and if there's no contact between the two, then they don't get brought in. So we are still contracting with excuse me, the same number of counties. The out-of-county kids are it's about half and half right now, and so I also am not quite sure how the juvenile court changes will affect, that are upcoming, will affect services. So right now I'm just, I don't know that I have any good answers for you, but the majority of the population decrease, in my estimation, was due to COVID.
Okay. All right, any other questions anyone might have? All right, do I have the approval of the report?
Move to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Second. Commissioner Sereno, all those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Report is approved.
I also have two separate MOUs. Both of these MOUs are with the Rutherford County Board of Education. I don't know which one posted first, but one of them is for basic education services for the young people that are in detention. This is something that we have done for several years. The kids that are detained receive the regular basic education services that they can get while they are actually in a seat at a school. And y'all know we've reported numerous young people, if they stay long enough, that have graduated from detention. So this is that MOU. And then additionally, I don't know if we need to wait or if I should continue. The other one is for supplemental educational services. Of note on this MOU, the contract references an Exhibit A. There is not currently an Exhibit A. This contract is the same wording as last year. We usually don't get the compensation section of the supplemental services contract from the state until April. And last year, I thought we were pushing these contracts a little close to the end. So I will eventually get that approved Title I budget for fiscal year 22-23. I just don't have it yet, and that is going to be the salary portion of the employee who does those services.
Any questions on the Board of Education's MOUs? Not, do you have a motion for approval? B moves to approve. Have a second. Commissioner Phillips, call the roll.
Commissioner Cerino,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Aye.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. I think
Thank
the
you.
other is what, a short page is,
That's part of,
make it part of your,
that's part of my budget
okay,
presentation.
we'll just do that at that time.
Yeah,
All right, thank you.
thank you.
Public Safety Director. Evening, sir.
Chairman, Mayor, Committee. I was so fired up and excited that I was going to be able to produce my budget tonight. I don't get to. So we have a public safety report for February 16th through the 21st. One of the things I'd like to add, there's not a whole lot of COVID in this. So we are really on a decrease. I'm hoping not to hear that word for the next few months. And happy to say, so after 2 years worth of COVID-19, I think we can take a little bit of breath, but we're cautiously optimistic that it will not take a spike. Also, recently you saw on the news where we had a semi that was overturned near Laverne on the interstate, about 8,800 gallons of fuel. I'm happy to report that we survived that, and that traffic was snarled for quite a while. We tried our best to divert traffic and get that. The Sheriff's Department, THP, Metro probably was more of a mess than we were, but it really dampened the traffic flow. And then also, we've conducted several hazmat training classes for several of the fire departments, and that was very successful. But that's basically my report, and I'll entertain any questions that you may have.
Questions?
Motion to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to approve. Have a second.
Second.
Second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Report's approved. Thank you, sir. And come back excited next time, and we'll be ready to go. All right, ambulance report and budget.
Good evening. I've been threatened in the back about not being too short, so the report basically the same as, the previous month. Call volume was down a little bit. Response times were 7.6. And I won't bore you with reading all the numbers. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them about the report.
Any questions for the EMS service? I tell you what, they go through a thorough interview process when they get ready to advance people, I can tell you that. I spent a day with them not a couple of weeks ago, and I got to ask my one question, as I usually do. But we have some really good individuals over there that are qualified, and it's hard to come up with 4 out of, I don't know, what 16 we did that
total,
day?
yes, sir.
If no questions, do we have a motion to approve this report? Motion to approve, Commissioner Rather. Second. Second, Commissioner Phillips. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Report's approved. Yes, sir. Step right into your budget now.
Got like 3 budget
You
amendments.
got some amendments?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I think I've already.
3 different ones. The first one, an ambulance that it ended up being totaled. By the time they figured all the cost, it went up more than the insurance had given us. So we're requesting to move $3,000 out of vehicle parts into motor vehicles to cover the whole cost of that ambulance.
What would you like to do?
You have them all in one
Yeah, we can do them all together.
together.
And the second part of, or the second one is to move $120,000 out of supervisor payroll and $50,000 out of paraprofessionals payroll into overtime. And the last one is to move $70,000 out of assigned fund balance into other contracted services, and that is part of when we changed the billing company. We had to incur some costs with the new ones, and we had to pay the final bill with the old company.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve. Commissioner P. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Sereno. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Phillips,
Aye.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Okay, sir.
Budget.
We're ready.
So obviously, this is the first time me up here doing this, so do y'all want to go line by line, or do you want to hit the increases with the explanation, or?
Prefer to highlight the changes, whether it's
Okay.
increase or decrease.
Okay. Well, obviously, the first big increase is the paraprofessional lines. We're asking to add a total of 12 new employees. 8 of those will staff the Rockville station, but the extra 4 will be float personnel to help cover some of this increasing cost of overtime. We had some float personnel in the past, and that was beneficial in trying to control some of that overtime. The next one is our maintenance person retired, or he took another job somewhere else. The person that we hired to replace him had previous experience in the county, and so he came in making more than the previous maintenance person. The contracts, we're asking to add $28,000 for stretcher maintenance, and also a online scheduling program. That maintenance with those stretchers, we've done some of it in-house, but I think it puts a lot of liability on us. It would just be better if we contracted that out. Uniform line item was increased, asking for an increase of $10,000, wanting to add a dress type uniform for our employees for functions that they that they'll attend due to funerals or things of that nature. A little bit of increase there in furniture for the stations. Office supplies and materials was an increase. I think this is, since we've moved into Lytle, we've asked, I know the last couple of years at least, to try to remodel that back room where we do our in-house education. And the ambulances was also an increase. Everything has gone up. Chassis have gone up. All the materials have gone up. I know since we started the budget process, we've increased that a couple of times. And then the health equipment. Most of that is those CPR compression devices. We currently have 4 of those, and those things they're a game changer. They're currently on the supervisor's vehicles that are taking them to the cardiac arrest calls, but we're wanting to attempt to put those on every ambulance. And I think the last, I think it was about a 12% increase over last year.
Questions?
The,
Mr. P.?
On the cardiac monitors, that amount, will that put the monitors in every ambulance?
It will. We, in that total, in that line item, we only asked for one, and that was the new ambulance that's going at Rockville. So we currently have them on every ambulance.
Okay, and then you also asked for 12 employees, 8 for the Rockville station, 4 for floaters. What about the other stations that are coming on? Will that be in next year's budget, or is that what you're looking at?
For Kittrell, it will be, I think we decided to do that in next year's budget, and we do have some ideas of if that's completed sooner rather than later. We have some ideas of how we could go ahead and staff it.
Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We looked at the timeline. Of course, they're starting a month or so behind Rockville, but we feel like that we'll be ready. It'll be in next year's budget for Kittrell. They were laying concrete, I believe, today in Rockville today. So they're well on their way, and we haven't had the pre-con meeting yet for Kittrell. So that 3 months, that 90 days difference will put us into next year's budget, but we think we'll be there. So we'll do the same. There are a couple of things that let me just add to Gaither's budget, and we're well on our way, but just the source of revenue, the projections for the 22-23 year source of revenue is $12,096,000 and so even though the budget's gone up $2 million of what we're asking here tonight over last year, we're still at $12,096,000, and we're asking total of what, 17 million? 17,998. So they're paying a lot of their own way, but we need the tools in order to be prepared to move into these facilities, as well as buying the equipment, the stretchers, the automatic those stretchers that they've looked for. I think from a work comp standpoint, or from back injuries, these things are power lifts going into and out of the ambulance. I know they're expensive, but I think it will save us long term from our guys getting injured. The compression devices, we tried those out last year budget, and we found that we put them in the 2 furthermost ambulances that do the automatic chest compression. Isn't that right, Brian? That
Yes, well, that's
if you're coming 18 miles or 20 miles from Eagleville, one paramedic in the back will be worn out by the time they get to a hospital. So these things clamp down and they do the chest compression automatically. That was $200,000 right there. So they've proven themselves to be worth spending the money and saving people's lives. But all in all, I think it's a good budget, Mr. Chairman. That's my recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no other comments, I move that we forward on to budget with a positive recommendation.
Okay, do we have a second? Second? Commissioner Rather. Any further discussion? Secretary, call the roll.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Peay,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Okay, sir. Very good for the first time.
He did well, didn't he?
Didn't have the excitement Chris did for... All right, into our fire and rescue. Evening, sir.
For the sake of saving time, I'll be brief. For the month of February, of course, it was a short month, we ran 508 calls. Year-to-date, it was 1,168 calls for 2 months. Total call volume countywide was 1,508 calls with 29 structure fires and 241 MVAs. Next list is what we turn into codes department of structures that are damaged for the month. The next page is our fire marshal's fire investigation report. And he did have one plead guilty to an arson, and that is pending. Then the last page is the illegal burn report. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Have a motion to approve the report.
I so move.
Motion to approve, Commissioner Sereno. Do I have a second? Have a second. Phillips. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Report is approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anything with the radio system?
I'm here to entertain any questions. In the EMA report was the radio system. I know that Brian is out on spring break, on vacation. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Guess that's a positive. All right, Sheriff's report. I believe we got 2 budget amendments and 2 grant requests.
Thanks.
Good evening. As of this morning, we had 645 inmates incarcerated. I was going to go over some numbers with y'all. Detention last month had booked in 990 inmates and released 991. Patrol answered 2,603 calls for service. School resource officers made a total of 33 arrests. 11 of those was drug arrests and 1 a weapons arrest. Narcotics arrested 12 subjects, seized $356,872, and seized 10 weapons. And estimated street values of narcotics was seized was $30,485. That's my report.
Okay. Gentlemen, you have, every one of us receive a report about a week in advance that, we get that printed out copy.
Yes, sir.
Do any of you have any questions about any of that you've received? Yes, you take a good look at that because that covers a lot of things that's going on around and about you. I always look to see what's happening in my district and what's going on in that way. So I always appreciate that coming from the department. Any questions?
Motion to approve his report.
Motion made to approve. Commissioner Peay, do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Rather. All those in favor say aye. Opposed?
Just a real quick follow-up question. Gasoline, how you doing?
That's going to be one of my amendments tonight, move some money to the gasoline. Thank you, sir. The first amendment, we request to move $40,000 out of inmate food line item, also move $20,000 out of the law enforcement supplies, and put the total $60,000 into our gasoline line item. The next amendment, take $10,000 out of our jury expenses and $10,000 out of our other supplies, and put the total $20,000 in our motor vehicle repairs line item. The last amendment, $20,000 from our restricted public safety DEA line item, and put the $20,000 into our confidential line item. That's all my amendments.
Okay, we got actually two different amendments here, so we'll take the first one, deals with the gasoline.
Move to approve.
Have a motion to approve. Commissioner Phillips.
Second.
Second. Commissioner Sereno, please call the roll.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. And now a motion for the one dealing with the special purpose restricted funds.
Move to approve.
Commissioner Rather moves to
Second.
approve. Have a second. Commissioner P, please call the roll.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Requesting two grants. The first one, we're requesting to apply for the State Criminal Alien Assistance Program, the Office of Justice, Department of Justice. They make payments to eligible departments that incarcerated undocumented criminal aliens during the 12 months period. If we were awarded this grant, we request that the mayor be able to accept and sign for the agreement.
Is that a matching grant?
Sir?
Is there a matching cost to
No,
that?
no, sir, no.
Motion to approve the grant. Have the second. Commissioner Rather. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The second one, we're requesting to apply for a grant through Bureau of Justice Assistance for body-worn cameras. The match is a 50-50 requirement. If we're awarded this grant, we request that the mayor be able to accept and sign the agreement. We're in the process right now studying and doing some testing on some body cams for the future.
Do our officers wear them at this time, any of them?
No, sir.
What's the estimated cost per unit?
We don't know yet. We're testing 3 different companies, and then we're going to see which one offers the best price and product to go with. The grant deadline is coming up next month, and we want to get on the grant first, get approval.
What we're asking for is just to apply for the grant.
Yes, sir.
Move to approve.
I'll second it, but I want to look at it when it comes back. So.
Yes, sir.
Since this is a 50-50, we'll go ahead and call roll on this.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. All right, PAWS. I believe you have passed out copies of your budget. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. I may have been the only person tonight to beg to do my budget. I came in from vacation to take care of it, so thank you for indulging me, sir. First of all, my report for February, we had 400 animals come into the shelter, which is a little bit high for this time of year. It's got us concerned for when the warmer months come, what's going to happen there. You can see down at the bottom, we had a live release rate of 93.9% for our dogs, 97.7% for cats, and overall, when wildlife were included, 94.9%. 171 animals were returned to their original owners through our surgery program, and 21 cats were released through the community cat trap neuter release program. Our officers completed out 1,338 calls, and they traveled 8,124 miles for the month. Fiscal year to date, 3,785 animals into the shelter with a live release rate of 92.8%. Officers closed out 12,424 calls, traveling 84,966 miles since July 1. Rabies exposure and bite report, we had 14 bites reported for the month of February. None of those were sent for testing. We had 2 other exposures. Those were not sent for testing as well. And then the last page of the report is just the visual graph, so you can see the live release versus the euthanasia and other outcomes for the animals in the shelter. That's my report, sir.
Questions on the report?
Motion to approve the report.
Motion approved. Commissioner P.
Second.
Second. Commissioner Sereno. All those in favor of the report say aye. Opposed? Report is approved.
I do have a grant request that Mark at Budget brought to my attention that we needed to go ahead and see about getting approval for. I haven't received any paperwork yet, but we anticipate that it's going to come before the next meeting, and that's the yearly animal-friendly grant that we apply for through the state of Tennessee through the license plates. Typically, it's been you can apply for up to $5,000, so that would be our request tonight. We normally apply for the maximum amount, and then the state just gives us what they give us. This year, we received, I believe it was $2,000. So just asking permission to be able to apply for that, since the paperwork we anticipate will come in before the next public safety meeting.
Motion to approve. Have a second? Okay. Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Now moving on to the budget. Did you want me to handle it like we did a while ago? Any major increases, decreases?
We'll do it the same way we've done the others.
Yes, okay. So when it comes to the salaries, the only change that we requested there was to one additional officer. We do have one animal control officer that currently works 3 night shifts per week to try to give our officers a lesser number of on-calls per month. We're asking for an additional ACO that we could hire to come in and be another night officer, because they would be able to handle 3 nights as well. And that way our daytime officers would only have to cover 1 night per week when it comes to that. That's working well on those 3 nights, but when you come in and work a 7:30 to 1800 shift, and our on-call officers, they work from 11 to 9:30, and then they're on call until 7:30 the next morning, and they start back with a 7:30 shift. That can be very difficult when they get called out in the middle of the night. There was one thing that we did talk to the mayor and Lisa about possibly putting in, I believe we talked about for possibly 6 months in the next budget year, would be the addition of another full-time veterinarian. If you recall back, I think it's been 4, 5, 6 years ago, we put money in for a part-time veterinarian, had no applications. We increased that to full-time, still had no applications. But we're trying to put some succession planning in place so that we're not dead in the water when it comes to surgeries if something were to happen to our current veterinarian. The rest of the numbers as far as salary stuff is provided by finance. There is a decrease in line 307. OIT has taken on the AT&T portion of our budget, so that's moving over to them. A little bit of a decrease in operating lease payments, which are the vehicles that we have on lease through Enterprise. A little bit of a decrease in building maintenance and repair. That's just because we're in the process still of having those HVAC units replaced that were through the Gov 20 money, if I recall. So that should decrease there. We shouldn't have to have any expenses there over the next year. Decrease in travel, decrease in veterinary services, slight increase in animal food and supplies just because we're seeing those costs go up for food. We're also seeing our costs go up in gasoline, so we hope that money that's in there for the increase will be enough to cover that. A little bit of an increase in uniforms just for normal cost increased. Line 709, that's a line that's going to be moving over to OIT as well, so that line's been eliminated for us. And no other changes that I saw from there.
Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Michael brought a very good budget to us this year. What I've started out doing, members, is at the beginning of each one of the budgets that they bring before me, I've asked Mr. York, Cody York, to come at the very beginning of everyone's budget so he can get his arms around what all the needs of our IT requests are at the different departments. And then once we go through that, then he can be released and he goes back to work. But heretofore, we've been operating in different silos of laptops, IT, software, et cetera, and so we've transferred a lot of the IT stuff out of everyone's department to where he has total control. He'll put it up on a software system when he knows exactly when the end of life is for those different workbooks, tough books, or laptops, or anything else. He's trying to get his arms around all the cell phones, everything that is being charged to our cell phone carriers, because really nobody knew what was happening to it. So we've got a pretty good handle on it. And Michael has brought us outside of his, we've deleted several things, transferred over to IT, if you see. I agree with his request for the night officer. We actually, because of COVID and we weren't paying high enough, he was losing. We went down to DEFCON C, went in plan A, B, and C, and we were down to C because of lack of people to work on the weekends. We were thinking about shutting the doors on some days and not accepting turn-ins because we just can't afford to keep the doors open because there's not enough people there. So I'm recommending this budget as requested, and we send it on to budget, Mr. Chairman.
If I could add to what the mayor said there at the end, you and I haven't had a chance to speak this week or last, me being on vacation this week. Whatever would be past the DEFCON C, I don't know what I guess that would be a D, but that's where we are. As far as officers, we have 12 officer positions. We have 7 right now. I have 3 that are in training, and when we hire a new officer, it takes at least 6 weeks in the shelter to get them trained on our computer system before they can go out in the field, and several months past that to get trained to where they can be on their own. We're in very dire straits when it comes to our staffing levels. I outlined to the mayor, it's probably been 6 or 8 weeks ago, I would imagine, a kind of a phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 for our department. Right now, we're kind of in a phase 1/phase 2, but we're to the point, staffing-wise, we're going to have to more than likely implement a phase 2, which is what we were looking at, I think 3 weeks ago. We were able to push it a little bit, but I've continued to lose folks, and for every one I hire, it seems like I lose 2. Right now, myself and one of the supervisors are manning most days the adoption and the reclaim desk just so that we can be open for adoptions. We're to the point to where we are seriously on the cusp of having to stop owner surrenders and possibly having to stop strays coming into the shelter and stray roam calls simply because I don't have the folks to pick them up and I don't have the folks to clean them. We've come so far as far as our euthanasia rate. If you look at generally accepted terms in the industry, a no-kill shelter would be one that has a live release rate above 90% and does not euthanize any healthy adoptable animals, which we've been there since 2017. This coming Friday, April the 1st, will be 5 years since we euthanized an animal for space. I don't know how much longer we're going to be able to continue some of those things with where we are. So I want you all to be, the mayor and I have discussed multiple times some of the struggles that we're going through, and we've tried to hold off on some of the harder decisions to make, but we're kind of there. So when those decisions are made, we'll relay that out, but I want you to be aware that may be coming down the pike. That sum that up, Mayor?
Well,
What
it
we've
is,
discussed.
and just as we keep in mind, it's just not gas going up, but with the population increase of coming in and all the new houses being built, everybody wants a new puppy or a cat to go in their new house, and so, and sometimes they decide to get in the new house and it doesn't work out, and so they're bringing it to his location, and he's out of space, he's out of people. And like you said, we've gone 5 years without having to euthanize any animals, and that's the way we'd like to keep it, but he can't keep people there. It's getting pretty dire. We'll have to start making some tough calls, at least Mike will.
Yes, sir. And I just wanted to make you all aware of that's where we were. The mayor has been very open and supportive to some of the changes that we've had to make, and it's told me he's had my back as we go forward, but I just want you all to understand where we are as well.
Mr. Phillips?
Move to forward the budget with a positive recommendation.
Motion made to move on to budget.
I'll second that, but I do have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
This relates back to the other budget we saw too. The figures that you're using for employee cost, I assume they're based on last year's figures.
The figures that I have include the normal step increase of 1.75% and nothing beyond that. Yes, sir. And those were provided to us by finance when we started the budget process back in January. Yes, sir.
Okay, we had a motion that has been made and seconded. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Aye.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather, Chairman Reed.
Yes. Thank you, sir.
I got one more question before you leave, Mr. Chairman. I received a letter because I didn't know where to bring this, but it's either public safety, it could be a public safety issue or a public health issue, I'm not sure, but the commission needs to know. We received last week a letter from Jerry Mansfield. Jerry is the director, used to be county mayor down in Lincoln County when I served down there, but he's the executive director of the South Central Regional Development District down in Murray County. And we've always contracted through that group of counties. Here it is. Were you going to mention this? Okay, so the letter is that the company that the South Central Development District will no longer provide dead stock service. The company that has been doing this, Griffin Industries, has been picking up our dead cows and horses for 65 years. And they're closing and going out of business. This becomes a real issue for what farmers, ranchers, anybody that has large cattle. I don't know what we're going to do.
Not only your cattle, this is also those who have horses and ponies and
Any kind of wild,
any large animal.
and they're going to have to start burying it on their own farm if they got good enough soil. I don't know. It's an issue we need to be aware of. So if you're talking to anybody in Bedford or any other counties, Mike, I've reached out to Mr. Mansfield this morning. He didn't return my call, but this is going to get serious real quick.
It is. We've had just some brief discussion in-house regarding that. Of course, that contract did not flow through our budget. It was through just the regular county general fund. The service that we use for our cremation of animals euthanized at the shelter and for the roadkill pickup, it's a contract just for that. They do large animals. We had a large animal that was part of a cruelty case 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Is that the one in Laverne?
Yes, sir.
They pick up deer and
They do
etc.
that, and that's part of the contract that we have with them. They do large animals for individuals, such as, champion horses and those type things, and do private cremations for that.
But it's been a free service for most of the farmers here, right?
For the farmers, yes. I think I think the county general was, I want to say, somewhere in the $35,000 to $40,000 a year range for those. We had a confiscation case on a horse or a cow, like I said, 3, 4, 5 years ago, that had to be put down under us, and I had to pay our contract company outside of that. They charged us $500 for that animal, and that was because we were the county, and we already had a contract with them.
Was that tax-free?
I'm sorry?
Was that tax-free?
I think so, yes, sir. So I'm concerned as well. You know, the state of Tennessee has a law regarding how large animals, how they have to be buried. That falls under the ag crime unit. I'm concerned on what some of these farmers are going to do. You mentioned soil types and things like that. You know, you get out here in some of these rocky areas, you're not going to be able to get somebody to come in and be able to bury an animal. So you're kind of stuck there with, you're having to hire somebody to come out with a backhoe to bury it. You're having to hire somebody to come out and with a load of dirt to drop on top of that animal to cause some type of burial. You're looking at burning and those kind of things. Well, then you get into issues, you know, fire issues and those kind of things. So I don't know what the answer is for that. I think that all 10 provides a good service. I just don't know the numbers that the county has as far as pickups, if it would be cost effective to have them involved or not.
I guess we're going to have to reach out to them, and don't they incinerate?
Yes, sir, and I'm happy to reach out to them. The only thing they're going to ask me is going to be what the numbers are. And I don't know if this all-around underground that's doing it now, or if this, I believe you said Mr. Mansfield?
Mr. Mansfield, Jerry Mansfield.
Yes, that's the same.
If he would have those numbers, I'm happy to forward it to all 10 and say, hey, we did X number of cows, horses, goats, whatever.
As soon as he calls me back, I'll ask him for those numbers. I'm sure he has that.
I'm happy to see if they can put together maybe a quote for us.
This is under several counties. It's under Bedford, Coffee, Franklin, Giles, Lawrence, Lincoln, Marshall, Murray, Moore, and Rutherford, who have the contract with them. It expires the end of June is when it does expire, but they're quite busy with it because I've had to make some calls out my way to get them out. They even come out on Christmas Eve.
Oh, wow. Now, I think if I recall from what they're doing, they're basically just picking up and transporting to the landfill, if I recall.
Our landfill,
Yes,
yeah.
sir. Which is going to be, obviously, it's going to be more expensive for all 10 because of gas prices to incinerate them if that was a route that you all wanted me to look into. But I'm happy to check into that for you, sir, as long as I get those numbers.
I'll try to get those numbers for you tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Go. Anything else?
Okay.
One quick follow-up, Michael, before you leave.
Yes, sir.
I know you're shorthanded. Exit process, I don't know whether you station with those that are leaving for a specific reason that you've been able to put your hands on. People are leaving.
I can tell you for the ones that have, the quickest list I can get to are the ones for this year, and I can dig through my file and give you the ones for last year. This person was having a child and decided to stay at home. This person had family issues and money. This person, it was money and family issues. This one here was purely money. This one here, purely money. This one was money. This one was, stayed in the animal field, but made more money. This person here, again, stayed in the animal field, went to more money. Both those two folks left us and took positions, basically lateral moves at local vet offices, making additional money. This person here accepted a job and never started. This person here went to a local vet office as well, making more money, and here's another one that never started. And then the one that I had this past week is interviewing with other places for additional money. Those are the ones that have happened since January 1 of this year. I do have a list of 2021s as well.
Don't bother.
Okay. And some of the, just to kind of tell you where we are, I have 6 positions open out of 37 right now. And out of those, there are 5 that are new hires, so we're still trying to train them. But I've got 3 part-time kennel positions open, and I have 1 part-time in-house that works the desk, adoption and receiving. I've had that many applications all of this calendar year for those positions. Yes, sir. Does that answer your questions? Yes, sir. Okay. I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I also need to make sure that you are aware of where we are. Yes, sir.
Of course, I'd received the notice, being rural commissioner, about the dead stock removal. And something that came to mind as I was thinking, I was wondering, what are the specific laws? Do you know? We can't cart animals straight to the landfill, I assume, but I don't know that. Do you know?
Back when Mac was here, that was a question that I posed to him. That's been a few years ago. I believe my understanding was, yes, they could be transported directly to the landfill, but from what I'm seeing and hearing, it seems like the wait out there is pretty lengthy. And at that time, there was also, he had indicated to me there was a minimum fee that had to be paid. So you pay by the pound, ton, or whatever, but there was a minimum that had to be met that kind of made that cost prohibitive.
That's something I would like to find out about, and, you know, as far as being, just looking for alternatives. I think what we were discussing earlier may end up being the best way, but I wouldn't be adverse to listening to adding some personnel for your department to be able to do that if we can't find a viable remedy to the problem.
Yes, sir. You just have to remember that if we did that, again, I need to know those numbers so I would know what type personnel we would have to have, but also we'd have to have the appropriate equipment, i.e. trucks. I mean, we've both seen those, so we know how that process works. But then also making sure we have enough folks to be able to man it. As Chairman Reed said, you know, picked up an animal on Christmas Eve. You know, us getting those calls and determining what days we're doing that to make sure that we have the appropriate staffing coverage to handle that. And I think we both could understand where that would be a very difficult position to hire as well.
Well, you hadn't lived unless you've had a large animal carcass
Right.
upwind of your abode, and wondering when they're going to get there to pick that animal up. So
Been there as well, personally, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Michael.
Thank you all.
You know, that one on Christmas Eve, I remember that in particular because I had a constituent that had one right beside his gate as it was coming in, and he had company coming. And they were so far behind picking up, for some reason there was a lot of situations like that. And they showed up Christmas Eve night and got that carcass out of the way. So they were very good at coming and doing what they had to do. OSHA. Thank you, sir.
Okay, for the month of February 2022, total incidences we had was 22. For the calendar year, you'll see there was 33. Total recordables, 25. Restricted day claims, 10. Lost day claims, 3. All other recordables are 12. On the next page, you'll see on the job injury claims, year to date, we had 33. On the job injury incurred dollars, you have 112 for 2022. And then the cause of injuries, you had Board of Ed had 17 total. You had County General had 5, and of the County General, the Sheriff's Department had 4, EMS had 1. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Questions on the OSHA report?
I'll move to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Motion to approve. Commissioner Phillips, have a second.
Second.
Second, Commissioner P. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Report is approved.
One question.
Yes, sir.
It appears that the Board of Education had 10 slips and falls. Are those weather related? Do you have any idea?
Yes, several of those are weather related. On February the 4th, they opened up an hour late, but that was a busy day for us. And I will say, ice is different than snow a lot of times, so it's more frequent. You'll have more injuries with ice than you do with snow. And that day was an ice.
Is there still anything we can learn from that? And when we have those how we could react differently? Salt, something like that?
Well, I think on one thing we learned about this one is when you looked at the schools as a total, and I'm not trying to take up for the schools, but you have patches where there's shade. So when you do the school, there's like everything's good, and then you'll have an area that may have gotten missed where the sun hasn't hit it, and it's still ice. With 50 schools and the maintenance crew trying to get around to take care of all those, just like our maintenance, it's pretty stretched.
Okay. I think we voted, didn't we? Okay.
Thank you.
Make sure. All right, thank you, sir. Recovery Court. Have the report and the budget. That's a public announcement.
I also have a request to apply for a grant. So do you
Okay.
want me to go with report, grant, budget?
You got it.
Okay. So our report for February, you'll see that we had 147 participants. You'll also note that we had 2 that successfully completed and 4 that either self-terminated or were removed from the program due to their lack of ability to complete it successfully. Drug screens continue. You'll see that report on the back. Again, on those positives, the people who have tested positive for BUP, that is typically a prescription, so we don't count that as a positive, even though it shows in those numbers. All in all, we continue to have our groups daily at the office, and because of the DUI expansion grant, beginning in 2 weeks' time, probably we will be having evening classes for our DUI treatment court. That's my report. And then I wanted to ask for permission tonight to apply for the CDBG RHP program. It is a state grant. There is not a required match from the county, and we would be combining forces with the Department of Probation and also our reentry program with Doors of Hope. And this would allow us to apply asking for funding to renovate one of their already owned homes to make it have more beds. And it would allow us at Recovery Court, people at probation, and people coming out of the jail and the workhouse to go into that housing for a period of time without having to pay rent. I'm not sure if you all are aware, but housing and affordable housing is at a shortfall in our community, especially recovery-oriented housing. So this would be very beneficial for those of us who work on public safety to get our people into safe housing. And Doors of Hope is willing to write the grant on our behalf if we will just partner with them to do so.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the report first.
So moved to approve the report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Commissioner Phillips moves to approve the report. Get a second? Second, Commissioner P. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, now we've got the CDBG RHP, is that right?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Did you say there was a match or was not?
There is not a required match. It makes it a stronger application if the county were to throw in funding to assist with even getting furniture, according to Ms. Carlton, but it is not a requirement of the county, and I'm not asking for that at this time.
Well, I'll make the motion to allow her to apply for the grant.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Okay.
So with my budget, if you go to line item 320, you'll see that that went up just $55 based upon the additional staff that we have. It is a cost per person membership for our agency. In 334, that went up because Canon, our price with them has increased. We went down in postal charges, that's 348. We're doing more electronic options and sending things more frequently via email and through the portal at jail. One of the big increases is line 399. It's went up 30,000. That's the 3% increase for AberHealth. And then $10,000 of that is for a recovery app. This is an application that we can have our clients have on their cell phones so that we can have them virtually check in. So if we want them to have a curfew of a certain time, they would have to check in and we could see that they were at a certain place. If it's for their community support meetings like NA or AA, it checks them in, and that way we can see that they were there and there the entire time. What we're seeing is a lot of our requirements require clients to go to meetings and different things, and they'll say they went and they were going in and leaving, or they're going in to the door and somebody's signing their sheet and they're turning it in as if they were there when they were never really there at all. So we are spot checking some of the community meetings, but there's not enough of us to go around. This would make it a lot easier for us to do a lot of the monitoring of our clients. 425, we went down $100 in our gasoline budget, and that's because I've kept it pretty hefty because we started doing home visits, and even with the rise in cost, we're bundling them up by communities so that we're being more cost efficient with our gasoline usage. So I think we'll be fine just going down a little bit there. And the other big cost you're going to see is 707. I've asked for two things to be done in our building. Because of COVID and just the growth in our office, we are out of room. And we, if you've been to our office, have an area that's just classroom after classroom after classroom. And what I'm asking to do is to knock one of the walls between two of the classrooms down so that we can make a bigger classroom and hold more clients. That will reduce the number of groups that people have to do because we could combine them. It will also make it where we can make it smaller or bigger depending on how many people we need in there. Adam over at maintenance has gotten 3 estimates on that, and $22,000 is about what he thought it would cost, and I think all of those come in right around that. The $5,000 estimate, if you've ever been in our building, we don't have the metal detectors and things that you see often in a public safety building. But once you come into our lobby, we've got 2 little tiny wooden doors that do not shut on their own. And just for security purposes, I've asked about getting security doors there so that if someone were to come in, they couldn't just walk through the door and go back and, hopefully not harm anybody, but also just not wander around. And that is estimated at $5,000, and that puts the doors up that automatically close and then lock at the top so that you have to have a card to get in. All in all, of course, some of it is because of grants ending and things like that. You'll see that my budget did still decrease from last year, but again, you've got to take into account that it was more last year because we had some grants, and we will get more grants awarded this year that will go into it. So, and that's the gist of my budget.
Questions on the budget?
See this smile? I move that we forward the budget with a positive recommendation.
All right, have the motion to approve.
Second.
Have the second. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Peay,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Aye.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, probation. Evening.
Hello. All right, for our February report, we closed out a total number of 104 cases for the month, which equaled out to be 91 individuals. Right now, we're currently supervising 1,096 individuals. Those that are participating in classes at this time, were 63. In the month of February, we also had 16 individuals complete those classes assigned successfully, and we had 0 discharged, which is a positive thing. We were able to help 1 individual that was falling on hard times in the month of February through our Olive Branch program. Down at the bottom, as far as our financials go, for the month of February, we had a total of $16,485.76 for revenue for the month of February, with the difference of our expenditures equaled out to a difference of $93,803.93. The total amount in probation fees that was turned over to the clerk's office in the month of February was $7,782. Those that failed to enter payment agreements equaled out to be $1,476. So far this fiscal year, there was $59,054.95 turned over to the clerk's office to be collected on payment agreements. And so far this fiscal year, there's been $36,520.95 in probation fees that has not been turned over to the clerk's office to be collected on a payment agreement. And then there are currently 13 individuals that are deemed indigent by the court that we currently supervise. The second thing that I had, that would be my monthly report. The second thing that you should see attached, last month, Commissioner P. had inquired about a recidivism report. So what I did is I requested that report through our software system, and I brought it to you tonight, and it's a lot of different demographics, docket numbers, start dates, so it's a little overwhelming. So what I wanted to come to this committee with is to see what parameters would like to be ran. So our software system has developed the report in itself. What I did this morning is I just filtered it for this fiscal year. So everybody that you see on this sheet has, in other words, picked up a new charge or been placed on probation so far this fiscal year that had a case that was previously on probation. So I'll be able to tell differences, but I just wanted to kind of seek some guidance as far as what parameters we would like to have so that I bring specific numbers versus, 10 pages. So whether it be a parameter to say, if that person is on probation, we could even break it up if you would like to say, this many individuals are being supervised. Previous to that, they had not been with us since 2016 to 17. This many individuals had not been here since 2017, 2018. So really, I kind of have the ability to filter that report, just depending on what we kind of want to look at timeline-wise.
What would have the most meaning to you in your department as far as seeing that?
I think the most meaningful thing would probably be a breakdown of years. I think it would be beneficial because, it's hard to compare, just to kind of say the second person on here, this individual, and of course I redacted the names, but this individual was just recently placed back on probation, but this individual had not been on probation since 2013. So that's a big difference. I think breaking it down by numbers, if we want to go back 5 years, would make it a little bit more simplistic, or even say up to 5 years or 10 years or greater. So I think we can always revise it. If I bring it and it's one of those reports that's just too much, it doesn't give us a clear picture of what we want to look at, then I think we could adjust it. But I think to start off, I think that I could place them into years.
Would it make any difference as far as what they're actually been incarcerated for? I mean, if it's a drug addiction, somebody like that, if they've gone through rehab and those kind of things, and then 5 years later that comes back, or if you've got a habitual, say, theft, something like that, I don't know if that would make any difference or not. I was just curious at the numbers and how, trying to find something that would help you say, well, clearly we have more of these type cases that come back. Maybe we can target those type problems. I don't know. I'm looking for something myself. That's why I was asking.
Right, and I agree. I think that's one of those things that underlying charges are one of the things that can determine the behavior. And so what you normally can see is somebody who has a history of domestic violence. Most times, that's not the first time that they've committed that offense. It may just be that that's the first time they got caught. But behaviors like domestic violence, DUIs, and you can see out in the far right-hand column what action was taken. Did the court modify that? most of the time they modify it to say that person is modified and they dismiss it. Most of our cases are dismissed now versus actually somebody going to be incarcerated. So it would be a little bit more difficult to say, well, jail worked for this person or it didn't work for that person, but to see and break it down versus what action was taken and what charge was committed. Because I think it is important as far as thefts. You know, obviously, if somebody has a recurring theft issue, what did we not provide? What did the court not provide in order to keep that from happening again? Because ultimately, I guess that's what we're all here for, is to make sure that, you know, that person doesn't stay on a report 5 years from now. That person doesn't, you know, and I've been doing this for a really long time, so unfortunately you do see that recurring mothers, children. I'm now seeing grandchildren that are just kind of, it's all kind of trickled down. So I agree. I think charges are important to kind of see. We could always, I can bring a report next month and kind of break it down by charge and numbers of years, and then seek guidance then.
So, you're the expert on this, and, you know, I'm asking for guidance myself, but that sounds like a good starting place, and I appreciate your effort.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So I'll do that. I'll come before this committee next month with something that will reflect a more simple report.
Okay. Any other questions? Have the motion to approve the report. Have a second? Have a second. Commissioner Ratner. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? All right, we're ready for your budget, I believe.
Okay. The biggest difference for this budget versus last year or year before is the addition of a new position. Currently, I supervise 20 employees. This would bring that number up to 21. This position, and just to kind of fill you in on the differences, right now we have 3 probation assistants that attend our courts, and we have 2 administrative staff that work the front desk. So what I propose is to reclassify those 5 individuals from going to court and admins, and they would now become a probation service specialist. The additional employee would be a probation outreach coordinator, so they would also be cross-trained. So in other words, we have more courts going on now than we have in years past. We don't have the volume of people as far as the need for case management as far as supervision, but I think obviously the needs of the individuals that we have coming in are greater, especially because we are geared more towards trying to find services in order to stop the behavior, correct the behavior, give them the tools that they can have in order to be successful. So what I'm proposing is that the 5 individuals that I have now would actually be cross-trained, and the probation outreach coordinator would be able to structure that, those court schedules, make a court calendar. You know, years ago, even in 2016, we had 2 general sessions courts, and then every now and then we would have a circuit court going on at the same time. Well, now it's not uncommon to have 3 general sessions courts going on, and then we also have 3 circuit courts going on. So in situations like that, what we've been doing is pulling staff as far as the admins go, and they will actually cover court, so we kind of rotate. Anytime that we are down an employee, then we have to actually readjust kind of what coverage is, because we can't leave that front desk if someone wants to come in and make a payment or sign up for classes. So these 5 individuals would actually be cross-trained in order to do that. They would actually be able to cover all courts, be on the same pay scale, and the probation outreach coordinator, which would be the new position, would actually be able to do more of an outreach to have job placement done, treatment placement done, resume writing, pretrial sentence investigation reports. So anything that is related to court and services that we can offer, they would be able to take that on. So that is the biggest difference as far as my budget as a whole. As far as the communications that did go decrease because of the need, the only thing that comes out of that line item is one cell phone. I did increase the drug screen fee, the contracts with private agencies. That one, there is a 3% increase, but we've had a substantial decrease in the actual volume of people being ordered to take drug screens. There is a slight increase with our maintenance agreements, and that affects our copier maintenance agreement. I did decrease the postage. We just find more of an electronic communication being something that is a little bit more dominant now. Now, in the last one in 709, originally when we moved to 20 North, there was, security was down at the bottom, and they still are, but what we have found is that we have a need to have a visual of the building. So we have one security officer that's down on the first floor, but then we also have other floors of the building, and then also lots of different nooks and crannies in the office too. So these two down here would be IT-related things to the new employee, if accepted, and then as well as the monitors to support the security as well. So in other words, that's one of those things for security down at the bottom. If somebody was having an episode on the second floor, let's say, or in the stairwell, or in that building, you cannot see what's going on. He can't see anything unless somebody comes to say, hey, somebody's having a medical episode down here, or somebody's irate. So that line item would cover those IT-related issues.
And where would that officer be located?
Right now, he's on the first floor. And so Cody had sat in with us as far as the placement. He will stay on the first floor. He will also have the ability to have those mounted on the wall so that he can have a visual of the actual office on the first floor. Right now, he secures the building at night. He does hourly walkthroughs. He does all of that. But it would actually be something to be able to see what's going on upstairs.
Keep in mind, their entrance is off of West College, so they can't get entrance into her department from on the square. So they all come in from the other side.
Well, I was just wondering, is this person actually taking care of security for other entities, and if they are just for her?
Yes, for her.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I was going to say we need to spread the wealth around a little bit and let them help pay for that if that was the case.
Yeah, well, I think that was intentionally done that way. That's why we brought all of her clients would come in from the College Street side, and then IT and State Protective Services, they come in and get on the elevator, and if they don't have a swipe card, they're not allowed to come up to the third floor or even fourth and fifth floor.
And there's no access through the stairwells?
No, sir. Not unless you got a card swipe.
And I'm sorry, that would be my budget.
Other questions on the budget?
Well, you've got quite a reduction there and still are doing some amazing things. So I want to forward this to budget with a positive recommendation.
I have the motion to send it on and the second. Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Aye.
Commissioner P?
Yes.
Chairman Reed?
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate it. Correctional Work Center.
Evening. I have 3 different things to submit tonight. First is our normal meeting, and then we have a budget amendment request also, Chairman. And then
Okay, you want to do your report first?
I will do the report first. And I'll be brief with that. Included, you'll see our March 7th meetings. One of the biggest things to mention out of that is you'll see that I met with 3 judges a couple weeks ago, and we discussed sentencing some of these minor offenses to sanctions, community sanctions. So what they'll be doing is people that have like shoplifting charges will be, they'll be sending those to us to go out and clean up garbage. So that'll be very beneficial for us. It'll cut down on the contraband issues and some of the medical issues that we have with some of the guys going out there now. Work release program is going well. See the numbers there. Our yearly activity report, our population is staying pretty steady. And our February 2020 monthly worker report, you'll see a total combined savings of $68,663 using inmate labor. And in February, total trash collected on county, state, and interstates are as followed. County roads, county trash collected 7,520 pounds. And then state routes, including interstates, 121 bags collected along. That's not mentioning the large bulk items. We nominated one of our employees for one of the yearly awards with the Tennessee Corrections Institute, and last week, I hope to next month have him come up, but last week we found out that he was awarded that Facility Training Officer of the Year award, so pretty excited about that.
I'd like to do a resolution on that on behalf of the commission, Mr. Chairman. It's quite an honor for one of our employees to get.
We've received the top 2 awards from Tennessee Corrections Institute within the last year, so it's pretty big stuff. And that will be it on my report, and next we have a budget amendment.
Any questions on the report?
I got one question, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Cope, why don't you share with the committee what the judges are doing for us? And I was really excited about it, and our general sessions judges are doing as far as interacting with your department and trying to clean up our county.
That's right. That goes back to a little bit of what I said earlier. But some of these minor offenses, they're going to be scheduling with us. If you'll remember back years ago, we used to do the DUI litter cleanup, and we would send DUI offenders out on the road, and statewide they shut that program down. So hopefully this will be something that we can put in that place. I know Commissioner P gave me a call this afternoon. I mean, we're out there every day. I mean, we could literally send an army out there. So hopefully these judges will be able to provide us with what they like to think that, possibly up to 10 offenders every 3 days a week or something. So that'll help tremendously with getting out and cleaning up some of that extra garbage.
Well, they had stated when they brought their budget in that they had collectively, all the general sessions had agreed, instead of giving public community service, requiring community service hours, and sometimes they were letting them pick going somewhere and sitting and doing nothing really for community service. They felt that because the litter has gotten out of hand in our community, this would be a good opportunity for them to get out and work a little bit and maybe think about doing what they did that they were being required to do.
Right.
So thank you for working with the judges on that.
Oh, you're very welcome. It'll benefit all of us.
Very good. If there are not any questions, so I have a motion to approve the report. Motion approved and made Commissioner Phillips to have second.
Second.
Second, Commissioner Sereno. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Report is approved. I believe you have a budget amendment for a washer.
I do. We'd like to request to transfer $15,000 from cleaning supplies over to other equipment to pay for a new washer. This is probably the second time within the past couple years that we have been tasked with doing our laundry, juvenile detention's laundry, and the jail's laundry all at the same time. And I mean, that's a lot. That's 24-hour service. So with our old washers, they're just not keeping up. And I think the second day into helping out the sheriff's office, one of them shut completely down. So we desperately need that washer back.
Well, that was one thing, Mr. Chairman, that we were afraid of is because of the fire that we had at the sheriff's department. We had several of their washers and dryers were damaged in the fire, and the length of time because of supply chain issues of trying to get those expensive washers and dryers in here, they were picking up the slack, and we were concerned that it was going to overload these. So there's a need to allow him to go ahead, and we are going to get reimbursed for the sheriff's department, but now we can't get reimbursed for what the sheriff's overload has created for him. It just got wore out.
Motion to approve the request.
Motion to approve the request. Commissioner P. Second, Commissioner Phillips. Call the roll.
Commissioner Sereno,
Yes.
Commissioner Rather,
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Commissioner P,
Yes.
Chairman Reed.
Yes. Okay, sir.
All right, moving on to our budget. And I'll just kind of highlight like the rest have done. The first you'll see is in that 160, line 160, and that's a promotion of detention officer to corporal. We're not asking for any new employees, but we are asking to promote one from detention officer to corporal. For about 3 years now, we've put that in the budget, and because of other needs, we've taken it out. But I think we really need to do that at some point because we have an officer who is filling in for a supervisor for all this time. So I'd like to be able to do that promotion without asking for any additional employees. Go down to looks like communications. We're going to increase that by $500, and that's due to the trail cameras that we have started putting up throughout the county to catch some of these people doing these illegal dumping. Okay, our maintenance agreements on 334, increase that by $2,000. Everything's going up.
Now, those trail cameras are smart cameras, correct?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes, sir.
the ones we put out the first time, I think Chairman Pettis donated one. They started stealing them.
They started stealing them, and there was a battery issue too. We were going out there every couple of days and replacing the batteries.
Yeah, so the ones that you're purchasing have Bluetooth, and we'll be able to track them when they try to steal them. So we'll find out where they're at.
You'll see a decrease in 338, and that's a maintenance and repair service of vehicles, decreasing that by $500. A decrease in our mail, $150. An increase in contracted services, and that's $100,000. Now that includes our Summit Food and Rudd Medical, which both we are have gone up in front of and done new contracts within this year. So that's why you'll see the increase there. Animal food and supplies, 401, we decreased that by $1,000. I think we're in pretty good shape there. A decrease on data processing supplies, $500. A decrease in our equipment and machinery parts, $1,000. A decrease in our uniforms, We've done really well over the years of buying when we needed and stockpiling those. And then everything else remains the same, except we are adding the 790, and that's a Stanley upgrade to the intercom system, and that's $155,000. The intercom system, or the security system, we've upgraded the cameras, we have upgraded the actual operating system itself, and the only thing that's left is the intercom system, so that's the reason we're asking for that. That system that we're using has been outdated for years, and it's only a matter of time. If that thing shuts down, we will not be able to go on eBay and get parts for it anymore. It's gone. So that's the reason we're asking for that. And that concludes the budget request.
Other questions on the budget?
I think what you're asking for is very reasonable. You got about $150,000 increase over last year, and do the upgrade on the intercom system, that's pretty well covering that, not to mention, you know, the other increases that you have. I'm kind of amazed at your gasoline line item myself.
Well, and a lot of that we're paying out of the litter grant. So we've switched some things around and doing more to pull out of that litter grant. We're actually doing pretty well on gasoline.
Well, having said that, I'll make a motion to approve the budget, forward it with a positive recommendation to budget.
Motion made by Commissioner P. Do I have a second? Second. Commissioner Phillips, please call the roll.
Commissioner Rather? Yes. Commissioner Phillips? Yes. Commissioner P?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Chairman Reed?
Yes.
So,
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, before Bill leaves, let me invite each one of you out next Wednesday on the 6th, April the 6th at 10 o'clock. We've been trying to get the governor to come for the last year and a half, really, to come out and look at the new program that we've implemented at the workhouse with the mechatronics type equipment. And we hired a gentleman from the GM plant to come in and do the instructions. So these inmates that Mr. Cope has will be able to graduate with some type of certification and get out and get be able to show that certificate that they have a job and can get a car and get transportation to and from work and hopefully get their life back together. So it was $100,000 you all approved for us to use that, to give that grant from the Gov 20 money originally. And so I hadn't been able to get the governor, so we've got, I've requested Lieutenant Governor Randy McNally will be at the Correctional Work Facility at 10 o'clock on Wednesday the 6th. So please come out and be there, and we're going to try to highlight that and let people know that we're making a big difference in trying to restore these guys' lives and end the cycle of recidivism. And girls, if you get one.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other business come before the committee tonight? If not, we're adjourned.